application called R Planner. So that application was basically related to business continuity management. So there I was working as a full stack developer with technologies like HTML, CSS, AngularJS, Bootstrap for the front end. For back end, I was working on Java and Spring. And for the database purpose, we was using Oracle database, sorry, PostgreSQL. And after leaving TCS, I joined Accenture. So here I work on a project called Ingenico e-payments. So it's a leading in payment gateway application. So here I basically work as a backend developer plus an additional role Scrum Master as well. So as in for the backend development, I work with Java, Spring Boot, microservices, and for the backend we use the Oracle database. And other than Git, Jenkins, CI/CD, and all other tools we work on. And other than that, I also do some other stuffs from this. So there is one friend of mine who was having a startup. So I was helping him out in making few applications. So I've created two applications for him. One is a chatbot. So it was not a dynamic chatbot. It was a static kind of chatbot, which doesn't include any NLP or ML. But yeah, the thing was, it was basically working on WhatsApp. So if some customer is sending some request, it was capable enough to handle that request and revert back with a proper response on WhatsApp itself. So that was one thing. And also, I was not very good with Android, but I've created small application and we have deployed the same on Play Store. So as of now, it is working absolutely fine. So yeah, that is it all about me.
Can you tell me currently what's your like the design architecture of your current project and why you choose it's built on Spring Boot?
Yeah, so basically what happens, it's a kind of payment gateway application. So we have different service providers, we have different payment methods. So as in payment method, if we see, we have cash, we have card, then we have wallet kind of thing. So I basically work with wallet kind of payments. So here in the wallet kind of payments, we have around 5 to 6 service providers. Sorry, 30 to 35 service providers. So as in service providers are something like one is a PayPal, one is Phone Pay, Google Pay, and then Amazon Pay. So we have different service providers like that. So what happens is like if there is a merchant, for example, Amazon is a merchant. So when you are Amazon website, you have selected your items and everything is done. Now you're on payment page. So there you actually click a button for payment. So if you try to pay through PayPal, so it will not directly go to PayPal. It will first come to us. That is, there is an application called Payment Engine. So it's a huge application and we call as a heart of our Indian eco payment. So this application basically takes care of all the like request validation and everything is basically happening in this payment engine application. So we do like whether the merchant is authorized to use this payment product, is it configured for him and everything. So once that is done, then we check for what is the currency, what is the country code, what if merchant is authorized to use that as well. Then we go for the amount check. If it is a kind of recurring payment, then we also check for the retail decision kind of thing. So there are 100 of checks which we perform over that request, and once that is done, then we are redirected to the microservice application. That is a small microservice for each and every service providers we have created. So for PayPal, we
Okay.
have a different service provider. So it is basically the request is delegated from payment engine to the PayPal service provider. So there we actually architect the request according to how PayPal is expecting from us. So we architect that according to that requirement, and then we send the request to the PayPal real service provider. So this is how the flow actually goes.
So your application is in cloud or
Yeah, it's in a
is
cloud.
it?
Yeah, it's in a cloud.
Okay, so it's like a one microservice you are handling as part of that application, or you have like the obviously like the application itself is designed.
So as an application, as in we have per app per service provider, we have an application, and on production that is
Okay.
on server, we have two nodes for each and every service provider. So there are
Okay.
each and every have two nodes, and also for the payment engine, as it is basically used by each and every payment method. So for for payment engine, we have around 5 nodes on our production environment.
Okay. So mainly you're working on cloud-based
Yes,
application, right?
yes, yes.
Okay. So how is the logging mechanism you're using in your application?
So we basically use Lombok for that. So that is the thing. So we just need to we have in added the Lombok library into like dependency into our POM file, and then after that we are just using at the rate SLF4J. So it gives us the
Okay.
logging thing. We can use the same into each and every file.
Okay.
Yes.
So coming to the exception handling, how are you doing exception handling within your application?
So as exception handling as a part of it, we basically have a user defined exception for each and every service providers, and of with each and every exception we have a error code with it. So we have basically divided into four error codes. So according to the, like, if it is a 500 kind of thing, so we'll give system error kind of thing. So we have at four already defined, and each and every error which we are getting from service provider, we have like we have integrated with our four error codes kind of thing. So we use those error codes only while whenever we are getting any exception. So we create our own exceptions and we throw those only.
So where does it go? Means you throw in the sense. So how is it handled in your application? Is it
Yeah.
return back to the
Yeah. Yes. Sorry.
yeah?
You were saying something. Sorry. Yeah.
Now, how is that handled? So, if, for example, your service provider throws an exception where you're
Yes.
connecting, so how will it go to the end user means who
So
is
so
making the payment?
yeah, so basically in the response, what we do is we actually add whenever we get the what we say as whenever we get the exception at that point of time, we actually add, there is one object which we have created, and that object is called as error response object kind of thing. So error details, sorry, error details is an object name. So there we have two parameters. One is an error code, and second one is an error message kind of thing, and third is error
Okay.
description. So whenever we are getting any exception, we add that into the response, that object we create according to the exception what we are getting, and we attach that with our response whatever you are sending. So if whatever is the response, if it is a true, then this will be kind of null thing which will be going. If it is not true, then in this scenario there will be a data in error details, and that end user can actually use it.
So, you are just that to understand, you're exposing some APIs as part of your application,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So, what are those? Are they REST based or what are those APIs? Can you tell me?
So basically, I'm just trying to repeat the question. So just to clear that I understood correctly.
Yeah,
So basically, you are asking like what are the APIs which we are exposing and how we are exposing it, is something what you are expecting?
correct. So, are they REST based APIs or how,
Yes.
how are you defining the guidelines for your APIs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so basically for exposing, we basically have one thing is like we use Spring Boot, so we have a REST controller and each and every API. So there are very predefined APIs which we have. So one is a payment API, so that is first API. Second one is refund API. Third one is a get status API, and sometimes we do have one more partial refund kind of thing. So sometimes it is kind of refund itself. Sometimes in some service providers give us different kind of thing. So that is partial refund kind of API. So these are the four APIs which we use, and for exposing to the end user, for exposing it, we use Swagger for that. So for each and every application, we have included Swagger into our application, and whenever somebody tries to find out like what are the APIs we give, so we provide that Swagger link. And also, if as in the merchant wise, if we see, we don't directly give the, because it is impossible to communicate directly to the service provider module, that is a microservice. First the request will be coming to payment engine itself, so we expose that merchant APIs only through that payment engine APIs itself. So that is the only thing.
Okay.
Yes.
So are they all REST based APIs are all on REST based, right?
Yes, yes,
Or
yes, yes,
okay. So you are, means mostly you use JSON only for all your communications.
yes, yes.
Okay. So now, how are you handling the transaction? Say, for example, the payment has been initiated from the customer,
Yeah.
and how do you ensure that that entire goes through? And if anything happens, how are you going to roll back? So how are you doing those things?
Okay, so basically what happens is, now for example we have sent the request to the PayPal service provider, and we are not sure whether we are successful or not, because we haven't got any response from that. There is some issue which happened at their end. So what happens is we have created few small applications. So that applications we call as an offline application, but the major work of that application is, so there are different statuses for each and every transaction. So 50 status is something which is pending as of now, that is what we have stored. So whenever we send the request to the real service provider, that is PayPal, the as of now, the in the database we save the status as 50 for that transaction. So now what happens is each and every 30 minutes, the offline app basically takes all the data from the PayPal database, and from that it checks which all service providers are basically having a 50 status, like which all transactions have 50 statuses, and we check that statuses. And again we call on each and every transaction, we call whether what is the status of it to the PayPal service provider, real service provider kind of thing. So if we get the successful transaction from their end, if we get the successful result from their end, we will be basically adding every each and every response into our database, and we will end the transaction, we will set the transaction status as successful. If that is not the case, so there is one more parameter which is called expiration period. So that expiration period is basically defines after how much time the transaction will be expired at PayPal side. So if that if after around for example it is 2 days, so after 2 days we are trying again and again. If we are not getting any response from them, then after 2 days we actually end the transaction and we set the status as failed from our side kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are the months? What is the security you are handling once? Because it's especially payment gateway.
Yes, yes.
So how is the security being handled?
So basically, as in security wise, we basically use a token system kind of thing. So each and every service
Okay.
provider has two things what we provide. One is the API key, and second one is the secret key. So whenever some service provider is sending us the request, the first thing which they need to do is they need to use the secret key. Like they will be embedding the secret key with the request, and they will be creating a request into the SHA 512 algorithm. They will be encoding the request into 512 algorithm, and they will be sending it. And in the header part, they send us the API key as well. So there are two things which we use. So those are the two things. And at the end user, that is at the PayPal side, that totally depends on how they are expecting. In some, they want us to create some create some token with respect to the request what we are sending. Some they just need the API key, some they have given some other parameters. So according some use OAuth thing. So that totally depends on their end, whatever they are expecting. So we send in that format itself.
Okay. So tell me like what all you're using in Spring Boot means. What all features you're using of Spring Boot and why Spring Boot first of all?
Yeah, so basically why we have used Spring Boot is the foremost reason is if we wanted to create any Spring Boot application, so the only things which are required is we need to go to Spring Initializer, we need to select the dependencies, whatever the features we want to use of Spring. So once that is selected, then the next step will be we are done with the creation of the framework. It is done, like Spring Boot application is done, we need not to do any other thing. Now the second part start is our business logic. So the first reason for going Spring Boot is if we wanted to create an application, we can create within a minute, and the only thing which we need to add is our logic, that is business logic. So that is the first thing. So it is very fast and feasible to do everything for the developer. Second thing is basically it gives features like it as of now in the current version it started working with the reactive programming, that is through Webflux. So we are using Webflux as of now, so that is going ahead with the async calls and everything. So that is one of the good feature which we use as of now. And other than that, as in the microservice architecture, it is one of the best framework which we can use to create the microservice architecture. And also it gives the Spring Cloud kind of feature which has everything like each and every microservice architecture required, like service discovery and all these things. So this is already present in Spring Cloud, and so that is also one of the good feature which we have. So I think that is the reason we went ahead. And also about the server as well, so it has embedded server Tomcat, so we can directly use
Okay.
that, we need not to add any other server.
So, considering within your application, how is fault tolerance handled? Means, let me take an example.
Yes,
So, you are making a call to a third-party service provider, right? Means,
yes,
once a request comes.
yes,
Say, for example, the third-party service provider is not responding.
yes.
So, how is the fault tolerance? How are you handling those things?
So as in if that is the case, so there is one thing what we have handled is something is like so for handling this kind of situation, we have the best thing is about circuit breaker concept. So we can use the circuit breaker concept, and if we find that if there is an issue with the third party thing, or if there is an issue with any of the service which we are using, which we have, So if in this scenario, what we can directly configure in the circuit breaker that always the response should be something like as of now we are down, please try after some time kind of thing. So I think this is going to be the best thing what we can do.
Like it's we consider let's consider that he is responding slowly.
Okay, okay.
It's not fully down. So how do you go about handling those kind of things?
So if that is the case, if they are responding slowly, maybe what we can do is if they are responding very slowly. Okay, so mm, okay, so if they are responding slowly, maybe what we can do is I'm not sure about it, but what we can do is we can actually take certain number of things like we in the request in the request pool what we have, we can take the certain number of requests itself only, and after that we can revert back with the response like as of now we are facing some issue with the with the service provider, please come back after some time. Maybe I've never faced such situation. Maybe that is the reason.
Means you would build means will not face that, but you will build means
Yes,
think that you need to build a now a microservice
yes,
where you want to call your microservice is A and there's a microservice called B.
yes,
So the customer hits your service A and then you call the B.
yes,
Now B is not responding very fast and it's very slow.
yes.
So how do you make sure that you don't collapse in the sense your application doesn't get flooded? So how do you make sure that
uh,
because you need to be always available, right? You shouldn't your service should not go down because of some other service.
yes, that's
So
true.
how will you ensure that?
I think if that is the scenario, we cannot make it down because it will be surely going to impact the business. So that will never be the best solution what we have. So maybe what we can do is, if that is the case. So mm, maybe what we can do is like for example there is one I'm not very much sure, but yeah, what we can do is so for example if we are sending some request as on the a B like on the B service provider, at that point of time if we are not getting the response successful response at in our A service provider, what we can do is we can add any of the response within the request, like within the microservice A itself. Like if we are getting not successful response, then we'll be adding some like response, some generic response kind of thing, and then the same response will be going back to the end user kind of thing. Maybe that can be one approach which we
No,
can take.
I'm talking about how will you design your. I'm thinking about how are you going to design your service to handle such situations. So what are your like key design points?
Okay,
Can you say, okay, I need to ensure my service doesn't go down, but there's a dependency.
yes,
So if there's a problem, what are the key design points you will take care within your service so that your service doesn't get affected because of B?
okay. Um so there is B service and we wanted to check A1. Okay. So, mm, okay. Maybe one more thing what we can check is about the monitoring kind of thing. But as in monitoring, as in is if we know that whenever we are sending the response and whenever we are getting the response, we will be monitoring through Spring Cloud or Nginx. So at that point of time, if we find like there is a fail percentage of around 10%, 20%. So in this scenario, maybe we can directly make our application down or something like that. But making an application down is going to be very mm, so if that is the case, okay. Not sure about it, not sure. I'm so sorry about
Okay,
it.
sure. Not a problem. So now coming to your application, so how are you monitoring your performance of your application? Like,
Yeah, so
so
basically,
is there some tool you're using and what are the stats you're
yeah.
capturing as part of that tool?
Yeah, so as in the current organization, we have a ops team which basically takes care of this. So they have recently enabled two things, that is Kibana and Dynatrace for the logs and monitoring purpose, and also they use Spring Cloud for that. So what they do is they have configured the configured an email. So whenever if there is a, like for example, if there is a fail percentage goes above 5%, so in this scenario, like there is a time duration they have decided, like in 1 hour, if there is a failed transaction more than 5%, they actually get the notification directly, like this is the error which we are facing, and please have a look in this service provider kind of thing. So then they actually divert or delegate that request to us, and we check what is the error which we are getting, anything like that.
No, that is towards how you want to handle. I'm talking about what all performance stats you are capturing as part of your application. You
Okay.
say, okay, I want to see that your application is working fine. So, what all stats are you capturing, which indicates that your health of your application is fine? Or you start saying that, okay, my application is going a bit wrong, so I might increase more means more span more images or means whatever that can be taken up later. But what are the stats which you are
So,
capturing?
so we basically use, as in the Spring Actuator is one of them. So we use Spring Actuator and health as well. So we check the health every sometime, and according to that we actually if
So what stats? I'm talking about what stat means. Actuator is a tool
yes.
which captures some stats. What are the stats I'm talking about? Means
Okay. So
when you say your system is healthy, so
yes.
what all you check? What all your based on which stats you will check that okay your system is doing fine.
Yeah, so one is the basically the health itself, like whether the health parameter we are getting true or false. So that is one thing. Second is the statuses which we are getting. If there is a status which is failure status kind of thing we are getting for each and every transaction in this scenario, that is the second thing what we check. And then third thing is about what we say as uh, is the request, whether the request is basically coming and we are handling any we are not getting something like any error at that point of time when we are getting each and every request. So that can be the one parameter which we use.
Say I give you an example. It
Yeah.
could be a response time. So from the request, you say from the time your request came into your system and the the
Yes.
response time. So you'll start recording your response time and you'll see okay it's within a whatever your agreed thing. The next can be your CPU utilization, right?
Yes.
Means
Okay. Yeah.
how is it doing? How
CPU.
is it about the memory?
Yes.
So are you consuming more memory?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so coming to this memory, say for example, in your normal Java or any Java application,
Yes.
if you hit out of memory exception,
Yes.
so how do you go about debugging that?
So, as in debugging, what we can just check is there is any memory leakage or not, and if there is any infinite loop, if there is any such scenario, if there is any case where infinite loop can actually happen. So that can be, and this memory, so this basically happens only because of this, what we say as in the lot of resources we are using at the same time. So that can be one approach. If we have if it is possible to use the same resources again and again instead of creating new, so in the, like for example, the best example is communication, the connection pooling. So that is the best example we have. So for the communication connection, what we can do is the start of an application, we can create a pool of connection around 5, and we can use those same the pool data source is one of the option which we can use. So I think these are the few things which we can use.
No, yeah, correct. What you're saying is our preventive measures. Like,
Yes.
yeah, if I do all those things, I know.
Yes.
I'm saying somehow I'm hitting out of memory exception now.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, somebody has done something, or I don't know what it's now out of memory is coming.
Yes.
So how do I go about debugging it? So
Uh,
that's the thing.
okay.
Because what you all said is fine. That's all preventive. That you
Yes.
take those that we don't have. But now it has occurred. So how do we rectify it?
So rectify, as in the first thing what we can check is we can check the logs. So we will be getting the logs before the JVM crashes. At that point of time, we will be having logs at our server. So we can get the logs, and in the logs we can see the stack trace. What is the stack trace, and what is the input which we actually at what point it basically went into the infinite loop, or it basically because of this it basically happened that it went into the exception or error kind of thing scenario. So we can use the same inputs into our local machine, and we can try to perform the same operation like that. And I think we will be able to figure out like this is the scenario.
Okay, so you say infinite loop, right?
Yeah.
So do you think if I put a thing in infinite loop, I get out of memory exception?
No, as an infinite loop, I mean to say the recursive calls. I mean to say, like if there is a recursive
Okay.
call which is happening, and the condition which we have applied, that is not a proper condition, and it is not coming out from that recursion, so that can be one of the cause.
Okay. So, is there any specific logs you will look for, or just your application logs will be sufficient for?
I think I think application logs we can have as in application logs as in debug logs we need to check, because each and every things which we need to see, that should be there, like each and every stack should be there whatever it is performing. So I think debug logs
Okay.
we can have.
Um, okay. Now coming to this in Java, right? How is this class loading mechanism works? Means,
So
can you explain?
yeah, so basically I think in Java we have three class loaders, and they basically work on delegating kind of approach. So what happens is the topmost is the bootstrap class loader. I think second is the extensive class loader, and the third is the class path which we are using. So I'm not very much sure about the names, but I think these are the three names. So so what happens whenever we are trying to load the class, the first the request comes to the class path, then it delegates the request to the extension class loader. Thereafter it delegates the request to the bootstrap class loader. So first it will always check in the bootstrap class loader, that basically finds in jdk jre, and then after that there is one path, I think rt.jar kind of thing. So it basically checks whether the class file is there or not. If it is not there, then again it will delegate it to the lower thing, that is an extension. So it will check in the jdk jre, and after that it is in, I think in ext folder we have. So in the ext folder it will check whether that class file is not there. If that class file is there, it will load it. If it is not there, then again it will come into the class path, and then it will check whether the class file is there or not there. If it is there, then it will load that class file, and after that the execution will start, like after that the.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get. Means you said JDK and JRE. I didn't get. So what is that?
So
It
that
first
is
checks in.
folder path, I mean to say, that is jdk slash jre slash I think lib,
Okay.
yeah. So there is folder path which basically that follow, I think lib, and for the bootstrap it is slash lib, jre slash lib, and for extension I think it is for jdk slash jre slash lib slash ext folder it checks.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is the Java version you guys are using right now?
So as in previously we were working on Java 7, but from last 6 months we have moved to Java 8, and we are using that only.
Oh, yeah, moved to Java 8. So can
Yes.
you explain me about the streams in Java 8?
Yeah, so basically what happens is, like for example, we have a collection of objects, and we wanted to perform any operation on that. So just for example, like we have an employee list of employees, and we wanted to perform an operation something like that. For each and every employee, we wanted to add 5% into their salary. So if that is the operation, and we wanted to perform on each and every employee into the list, so what we can do is, there are predefined methods which they have given, like map method is there. In the map method we can write our own logic, like the salary should be salary equal to salary plus 5% of the salary, whatever it is, and then we will be collecting into the list itself again. So this is something like, if we wanted to perform any operation, or we want to filter anything on the collection of objects, so in this scenario we should go for stream api.
Okay.
Yes.
So coming to means have you worked in multi-threaded environment, right?
Yes, yes,
So consider the case where you are means you know about deadlocks,
yes,
thread deadlocks, right?
yes.
So how will you come to know means how will you debug a deadlock situation in your application?
Debug a deadlock situation. Mm, so we wanted to debug a deadlock condition. Okay. Um, I'm not sure about it. I have never faced such
Okay.
situation. I'm so sorry.
Okay. So now we need a Spring Boot itself, right?
Yes.
So I want to handle that means I don't want to handle exceptions at each class level. I want to handle at the global level. So how do I do that?
So as
Can it be done first of all, or how do I do that?
yeah, I think we have a Spring do provide the exception handler, so we can provide it in the exception handler, like it is basically work on each at the application level, and also we can have an implementation for AOP, so that AOP will be it will be combination of Spring exception handler plus the AOP kind of thing. So that is like
No,
advice
sorry,
which
I
we
didn't get.
can.
Sorry, sorry, I didn't get your this thing. Can you come again once?
Yeah,
How
so
will you handle it?
Yeah, so basically Spring provides the exception handler kind of thing. So there is a feature which Spring provides, that is a generic Spring exception handler kind of thing, and also with that we can also have the AOP concept, that is Spring AOP. So we'll be combining
Okay.
both the concepts, and whenever there is an exception, the advice will be called, and we will be logging that exception into it. Something like that we can do.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
So you said you're using SL4J, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Can you tell me what is the benefit of using SL4J than any other logging framework?
Yeah, so basically one of the
What exactly is SL4J and what is the benefit of it?
Yeah, so basically SLF4J is a logging mechanism which Lombok is provided has provided. So now what happens is, like, just take an example. We have a scenario like, if we are creating any logger, so what we need to do is we need to first create the instance of that logger, and then we will be starting it. Whereas if we are using SLF4J, the biggest advantage is we need not to create any logger. It will be something which is kind of lightweight thing which will be provided by the SLF4J Lombok library itself. So we'll be directly getting the instance of that. We'll be using that instance, and once the work is done, then again the instance will be going back to the, like, how the IOC container works. It is something internally, it works in the same way. So that is the biggest advantage if we use SLF4J.
Okay, so now you said that you have exposed APIs. Now coming to REST API itself,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
What are the error codes generally used? Say, for example, if resource is not found, so what is the error code will you return? Status code?
So I think for that we return I think system error we return. I think so. System error is the application underscore system underscore error kind of thing which we return.
I'm talking about in if you're building a new REST API.
Okay, okay, yes.
Okay, so I need to define the error code, means status codes for these things. So what one is resource not found. Uh, if it is means if there's an authentication error, what is the error code I do? And then what about if there's a request itself, there's an invalid input in the request. So what are the status code will you return for each of those cases?
Okay, status code. So I think for, if it is resource not found, I think it is more related to I think 401 is for unauthorized one. 401 status will be returning. If resource not found, I think that can be uh, if resource is not found, I think we can go for 404 if resource not found. And what is the other thing? Sorry, I
If
missed.
the input is if wrong input is given.
So if wrong input is given, so maybe we can send a bad request, that is 400 is the thing which we can give.
Okay,
Yes.
fine. So uh, give me a sec.
Sure,
Okay.
sure, sure.
Consider that means I just want you to see that
Yes.
we want to build a booking application. Okay.
Yes.
Like a what we have is like a book my show.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So you'll have different people logging in and trying to book.
Yes.
Now consider a situation where there are two people trying to book for the same seats
Okay.
in the same theater.
Yes.
So how will you handle these kind? How will you design? Means if you can just give me key design points, that would
Yeah.
be fine. How
So
will you handle these kind of situations?
yeah,
Yeah.
so basically what we can do is, whenever, so there is a concept called soft locking kind of thing. So in the database, what we can do in the row of that seat number, what we can do is we can soft lock it. So whoever is coming first, and when they are trying to book that ticket, like trying to book that seat, they will be clicking. So whoever is clicking on the first, when whoever we are getting the request, so we'll be first thing what we'll be blocking it, or we'll be soft locking that seat in the database. So the other person who is trying to get it, they will not be able to see that seat. So that is the first approach which we can check. And the second approach is about the payment. So for example, if he has blocked it and now he has not paid, he has just blocked it kind of thing. So after, so we will be defining some minutes kind of thing. Maybe 10 minutes can be one of the good suggestion. So we'll be trying to wait for 10 minutes. If in within the 10 minutes, if we get the pay from that person or from that session, so then we will be assigning it, and we will be hard locking it, or we will be hard kind of thing. And if that is not the case, so again after that, after 10 minutes, we will again make it to 0. So it will be available for each other users, each and every users again.
Okay. So you are using DB also within your application, right?
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Uh, are you using any database in your
Yes,
application?
yes, yes. We work with Oracle database here.
Okay. Can you tell me what are the different isolation levels
Uh,
there, and which is the isolation level you're using in your application?
I'm not very much sure about it, but I think we, as in the isolation level, we have propagation is one of them, and I'm not very much sure about it. I'm so sorry. I'm not very much sure.
Okay, fine. So means what do you use? Some HRM tool, ORM tool for your
Yeah,
DB or?
we previously we were working on JDBC, like we were using Spring JDBC itself, and from
Okay.
last 6 months we started working with JPA, and we started working with JPA and sometimes Hibernate as well.
Okay. Are you using any caching mechanism within your
Yeah, so
application?
we as in we use in Hibernate, like we use first level of caching itself. We are not going ahead with the second level of caching. And in the database side, we have a DBA team which basically works on the caching there itself. So they have indexing kind
Okay.
of thing and everything they have performed there.
Now, at application level, you don't use any caching.
Yeah, so we only go for first level of caching.
Okay, fine. Okay. That's all I had, Sandeep. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have two questions, Raghu. So
Yeah.
one question is, so if I get selected, if I get the chance to work with you, so what are the things, what are the technologies you want me to work on? What are the responsibilities you want me to have?
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure in which team you will be put in.
Yeah.
So most probably, I feel it will be club. I mean, I don't want to give you anything because it's the recruitment manager who decides on
Yeah.
which team you will go in.
Yes.
So I think it would be he would be the best person to tell you like what would be the project, what would be the technologies. Because if I do something and if he puts you into some other project, then
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't want to commit anything on that front. Yeah,
Yes, yes, I understand that. Yeah, and
yeah,
one more question I have. So,
yeah.
Raghu, I think we have a discussion for around more than like around 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So, do you feel like on which part I can work more on, or is there any area where I can work more so that it will be helpful for me to grow into the technical side more?
Yeah, so that's the thing is we are not supposed to give any feedback
Yes,
directly
yes.
to the candidate. So it's like we have to always go through the HR channel.
Okay, okay.
So we are not supposed to give. So anyway, I will pass on my feedback,
Sure, sure, sure.
and we'll have the recruitment manager or the HR will get back to you. So you can ask them the feedback, like what was
Sure,
the
sure, sure,
thing
Raghu,
and
sure.
everything.
Sure, Raghu.
They will be the right way to give it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I got it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Raghu.
Okay, sure, Sandeep. Yeah.
Have a nice
Okay.
day and yeah,
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.